You don't need to be so hard on yourself. I've honestly realized that 2 workouts a week is good enough. When I first started getting into lifting, and for a long, long time, I just thought that more is more. Like, if I'm into working out, I need to do more, keep pushing, push to the limit, go intense, go hard. And that was the key to, you know, results, the key to being happy with my fitness routine, feeling good about myself. And, there may have been a honeymoon period where, it felt really good to kind of have this all encompassing, all consuming routine. But what ended up happening was just pretty intense mental and physical burnout, to the point where I started to just resent going to the gym. And, I took 6 months off of, lifting weights entirely a few years back. But I love going to the gym. I love lifting weights. So I knew that, just quitting wasn't what would feel good for me. And when I came back to it, I wanted to do it in a sustainable way. So, I decided on 2 full body workouts a week. And it's honestly been life-changing. I really feel like this new workout routine, this new workout frequency is something I can definitely do for the rest of my life. And even more so, I found that I see the results I want to see in the gym, in fitness, and I'm genuinely happy with my routine. It doesn't feel like an asterisk, like, oh, I'm doing 2 days a week, you know. So I'm kind of sacrificing, some of my goals and things like that. No, I feel really good about my routine, and I actually feel better than I did when I was doing 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6 days a week. So in this video, I want to talk about the benefits of 2 full body workouts a week and why it might be the best for you if you've been struggling with your workout frequency. And as I always do, I like to put in these like small disclaimers just because I don't want anyone to get the wrong message. But if you're doing 3, 4, 5, 6 workouts a week and you're happy and you feel good about your routine, then I'm not trying to change, like convert you. You do you. And if you have a lot going on and you're struggling to even go to the gym once a week or once every other week, every workout you do, that's awesome, and more power to you. And I'm not here to shame anyone who's doing less than 2 workouts a week and is struggling. You're doing your best. But this video is meant for if you're struggling and you're trying to figure out what's the right workout frequency, and specifically if you feel like you've been doing too much and you're kind of hitting that wall, or you feel like you've been having trouble getting started because it's so intimidating, like, oh, I don't know if I have 4 or 5 days a week. This should hopefully help you. So the first benefit of a full body workout twice a week is that you can still build strength and muscle mass. And I think this is an important one to, get out of the way, because I think the biggest concern with this is like, it's not enough. I won't actually, see the results I want, strength and muscle mass. And, if you have other goals like even mobility or just better mental health or just, better function in day to day, you might still feel like even for those goals, it might not be enough. But it totally is. And, to kind of get into the weeds a bit, a lot of workout programs, the reason that they're let's say 6 days a week, is because they split up the body. So they might do something called push-pull legs. So on day 1, you're doing your push muscles and push movements. Second day, your pull movements, and your third day, any of your leg movements. You take a rest day, and then you do repeat. So you're in the gym 6 days a week. Or there's an upper-lower split where you do upper body, lower body, and you do that 4 days a week. So a lot of these workout programs, the reason they have you in the gym 4 to 6 days a week is because they're splitting up your body. So it's kind of, it's, if you think about it, like triathlon training. It's, you're doing 6 days a week, but only 2 of those days you're running, 2 of those days you're biking, 2 days a week you're swimming. So you're exercising a lot, but you're not actually hitting every muscle group and every movement pattern 4 days a week, 5 days a week, 6 days a week. So if you use that same logic, if you do a full body workout twice a week, you're still telling your body, hey, I'd like to, progress or improve this in some way twice a week. You're just structuring it in a way that looks different. And, there's an argument here like that's not as optimal, because if you're doing 4 or 6 days a week, you're probably just spending more time, over the course of a week on each movement pattern. But this channel is not about optimization. There's a bunch of really great YouTube channels out there to optimize your workout routine. I'm trying to unoptimize your life. I'm trying to unoptimize your fitness routine, and just, make it sustainable for the real world. And a lot of times with, our busy lives and as we get older, optimizing our fitness routine is not, it's not even on the top 5 priorities. It's just kind of, getting it done. So yeah, using that logic, 2 full body workouts a week, you're giving your body the stimuli it needs. And so that's like an important thing to think about, that you will still get the progress, because when you actually think about it, it's a similar frequency of movement patterns as a lot of these workout programs you might see online. Very, very few programs are going to have you doing 4 or 5 full body workouts a week, unless you're, an athlete or very advanced in the gym, which if you are, you're very advanced, you're probably not watching this channel. So just want to get that first benefit out of the way, that yes, it is still great for your routine and you will make progress. So the second benefit here is that it will actually create long-term consistency. So, I think that's the biggest issue people have with the gym, or one of the biggest issues, I should say, is consistency over the long haul. Sometimes people can get really motivated for 2 or 3 months, maybe with the new year or an event coming up, or just wanting a change. And what usually ends up happening is they're like, all right, I'm, going to go to the gym. And then they're like, all right, I want to go Monday through Friday every morning before work. And, it feels really good for a month, 2 months, maybe even 6 months. But usually what ends up happening is, the realities of life start taking over. Work gets really busy. There's family obligations. Just you want to have fun with your friends or do other activities, which is super healthy. And I'll actually get to that a bit more in point number 3. And you start to hit this point where you're like, I can't keep up this routine. And then that same myth comes where it's like, well, if I'm only doing, 2 workouts a week, what's even the point? So you go from 5 to 0, and then a year passes and you haven't exercised again, which is difficult. It's a difficult feeling to experience. So what ends up happening with 2 full body workouts a week is that 2 aspects of burnout, mental and physical. So physical, we can start with first. You're much, much less likely to have this physical burnout, because every time you go to the gym, you are kind of hurting your body in a way, and then it builds back up. But if you just keep kind of pounding it and like punishing it, without much rest, eventually you just start to feel a little like weighed down. You might even start getting joint pain and slight injuries, mini injuries and things like that, just from the like repetition and like the lack of rest. But when you do 2 workouts a week, you're kind of letting your body fully recover in between each workout. So if you do Monday and Thursday, by the time you're Thursday, your body has not just had time to like, generally feel better from the workout, but like really recover and really kind of, because all those joints, ligaments, soft tissue, that also needs time to recover. And so you're kind of ready to go in your next workout. And over the long haul of like years, you're never putting your body through like, into the deficit, into the negative of, into that red zone of like, oh, I could be kind of pushing myself to, hitting that wall or that injury. So that allows you to prevent that physical burnout, to say like, oh, years and years, my body still feels like excited for the gym, or like my body still feels good to go to the gym. I guess your mind feels excited, but yeah, your body still feels like good, and just kind of like, you kind of feel when your body like wants to move, and you'll feel that like every time you go to the gym, you just kind of feel that like you're pumped. You're just like, oh, cool. Like I haven't done this in 2-3 days. My body feels good. It feels recovered. Then the second aspect is that mental burnout of, when you're trying to go 4 or 5 days a week, once the honeymoon period wears off, you're like, every morning you have to think about like, okay, I got to get into my gym clothes, go to the gym, and like kind of push myself. And that can just start to wear on you mentally when you don't give your brain a bit of a break. I think people don't realize the kind of brain load it takes to work out. Like you're pushing yourself. So it's not just like sitting on the couch. And that feels really good. That's like, I just made a whole video about the mental health benefits of the fitness, but there's also a balance. So if you keep pushing, it starts to become counterproductive, and you just feel like your brain's like, I could just use a mental rest day. And I think specifically with lifting weights, you really have to like, you can't just go through the motions. You kind of have to mentally lock in like, okay, this weight could kill me. So let me like, really focus on it, making sure I lift it properly with good form and be really like zeroed in. So when you're doing that almost every day, your brain just doesn't get that break. But, as I was just saying, when you come in twice a week, every time you come in, you just feel like excited. You're like, oh, cool. I actually haven't done this in a couple of days. I'm pumped. I feel really good. Like, let's do this, and you feel that kind of mental excitement of going to the gym. And, one of the values of this channel is like having fun in the gym, in fitness. And that mental excitement is so underrated and is just going to keep you going for years and years. So preventing those two burnout categories is going to keep you long-term consistent, because I think a lot of times fitness routines can be very short-sighted, and a lot of this is because of the way the fitness industry markets these programs. It's not as much of an individual issue. I think it's a systemic issue in this industry. And you're focused on like, even think about what the programs are called, like 6-pack abs in 6 weeks, or like, there's the bulk and cut cycles that are like 2-3 months. And it's like, well, we want to work out for 50 years. What happens after like an intense 3-month period? And a lot of times you hear people just completely fall off, an intense fitness program. They go from 100 to 0. So that like, that jogging consistency over years and years, that like, the routine I'm doing now, I want to keep doing at 50 and 60 and 70 and 80. So that's a major benefit of this type of frequency. And then the last benefit that I'll talk about is just a balanced life. And this one is, I think, really underrated, and it goes a bit more high level. We've talked about the benefits in the gym, but when you start going 5-6 days a week into gym, it has to come from somewhere. It's not going to come from work. It should hopefully not come from like, your family and friends. So it starts to become like your only hobby in a way, if you make it, which, if you want it to be your only hobby, that's fine. And, if you're genuinely happy with that, that's totally okay. But I think for me, it's like, I didn't want to be the person who's just defined by like, oh, Mohith loves going to the gym and that's like all he does in his free time. I wanted to have other activities. And I felt like when I was going 4 or 5 times a week, it kind of started to become my only hobby, which like didn't feel good. Like, people would ask what I've been doing, and I'm like, I think I've just been going to the gym and then going to sleep after work. And it's like, that just wasn't really making me feel good. And so when I started switching to this, I kind of suddenly had more time to bring in other activities. So a big thing is I joined a bowling league, and it's something I've been wanting to do for years. And so I go bowling every Wednesday, where maybe in the past I would have been like, well, I can't, that's my pull day or push day. I can't go to bowling on Wednesday night. But now I've been doing that for the last few months. And, I got more into like table tennis. I have more time for just going on like long walks. I tried Pilates for the first time. Even outside of fitness, I like start going to the movie theater more, and, trying to stay more up to date on like what movies are out and things like that. And just, yeah, have a bit more of a rich, balanced life. And I think, again, as we get older, we might not want to just be zeroed in on one thing. I think, life is very rich when it's filled with variety of activities and hobbies and things like that. I had, I had time to start this YouTube channel, which has become, a big hobby of mine. And so, for you, if you feel like, oh man, you're pushing yourself in the gym, going all the time, you're probably both mentally exhausted and logistically strapped to find other hobbies and things to do with your free time. And again, that might be fun for some time to be like, wow, I'm all locked in on this hobby. But over time, it feels really good to kind of have a variety of things you're interested in, a variety of identities. And that's just going to lead to a much happier, balanced, and rich life, in my opinion. And so I think that's, a great benefit of 2 full body workouts a week. I think you'll have a better life, in my honest opinion. So those are the 3 benefits of full body workouts twice a week. And, for this next part of this video, I want to talk a little bit more practically of what that might look like and just some principles, in case you're a bit more confused. And I won't go into, super details because, again, a big part of this channel is like you figuring out which exercises and what works for you to create a fun and sustainable and shame-free fitness routine. So my preference is to do this full body, as I've mentioned, just because it allows you to, with that slightly lower frequency, it allows you to just really feel that, still that kind of effect and that progress towards your goals. And, I never want to be dogmatic. If you want to do upper one day and lower one day, and that works for you, you will still see progress, even giving your muscles and movements one stimuli a week. My general preference is to do this full body. And so by that nature, picking exercises that tend to be what's called compound movements, so they use multiple parts of the body, so things like deadlifts, squats, but also other things like carries, clean and press, overhead press. There's all types of different movements that kind of work your whole body. And that can just make it a lot more time efficient, or you could just do a couple exercises. At the end of the video, I'll have a link to a video I made about my favorite 2 exercises. And so you can just pick a couple exercises that work your whole body. And then there's a few paths here. You can either just do literally the same workout twice a week. And so for me, that would look like a clean and press and then a suitcase carry twice a week. You can do the same workout. You could also change up the exercises. So maybe there's about 5 or 6 exercises you want to try. You do 2 or 3 on one day, 2 or 3 on the other day, and they're all full body. And then the third path is that you have the same exercises you do each day, but you vary the intensity. So you maybe go a little bit heavier on one day, and you're kind of in that 5 to 8 reps range. On another day, you're going a little lighter, and you do 10 to 20 reps. Because I love the exercises I pick, I usually don't vary the exercises too much workout to workout, but I will vary the weight I use. So when I'm feeling a bit tired or just want to go lighter, I'll go higher reps. And when I'm feeling a little bit more like kind of want to feel a bit more strength, I'll go a bit lower. And that's a nice way to, okay, I love these exercises. I don't want to switch them out, but just want a change in feel. Because as soon as you kind of change the weight, it changes the feeling of the workout. So yeah, I would say if you want to do 2 days a week, try full body, pick compound exercises, and then see there's slight variations you can do in exercise and intensity, or you don't have to, but just think a little bit about how you want to maybe vary it or not. And you should be good to go. The great thing about it is that this practical section is short. It's really simple to set up, and you'll really see the benefits I mentioned and just the simplicity of it. So that's the video, that's the episode. I hope it brought you value if you felt like you were being hard on yourself, felt like you were just confused about the gym in terms of workout frequency, or just felt generally intimidated to start because you were worried. If this video brought you value, please let me know, comment, what's your experience with workout frequency and consistency? Have you tried 2 workouts a week for a period and seen it? Are you interested in that? Just want to get your thoughts. And as I always do the YouTube thing now, If you really found this valuable, if you genuinely enjoyed it, please consider subscribing and sharing with your communities. We just passed 600 subscribers. Super excited about that. That honestly felt really cool because when I started this, 1,000 subscribers sounded kind of like a pipe dream. And now it's starting to feel a bit more like, that it could happen this year, which is really exciting. And so I appreciate everyone who's subscribed already, and excited to have new subscribers come along. And so that's the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you want my video on how to choose your exercises, you can watch this one here. And yeah, thank you for watching. See you for the next one.